Always true. In the blue expanse of the Mediterranean, a ship named Madleen sails towards Gaza. It carries no weapons, only food, medicine, and defiance. Launched by the Freedom Flotilla coalition, Madleen is headed for a land under siege as Israel continues to enforce a near-total blockade on aid to Gaza. The result? Children dying of hunger and more than 90% of the population facing catastrophic food shortages. The ship is named after Gaza's most recognized fisherwoman, a symbol of survival, a tribute to resistance. Madleen is charting a journey of 2,000 kilometers, every one of them shadowed by risk.
And no matter how dangerous this mission is, it is nowhere near as dangerous as the silence of the entire world in the face of a live-streamed genocide.
On board are activists including Greta Thunberg and Yasemin Acar.
A suicide mission.
As they sail past the coast of Crete, we connect with them. They know they may be intercepted, diverted or detained at any moment. But still, they go. From the Mediterranean Sea, Greta Thunberg and Yasemin Acar talk to Al Jazeera. Greta Thunberg, thank you so much for talking to Al Jazeera. I think anyone watching the carnage in Gaza can probably understand your motivation for wanting to help a people that UN officials say Israel is exposing to forced starvation. But why did you feel it was vital for you not only to support the Madleen, but to be on board it?
It's just if you have any sense of humanity left, then there is no option but to stand with Palestine and to do everything you can. And for some reason, I have a platform that I can use. And if my presence on this boat can contribute in any way to showing solidarity with Palestinians, then I will do that.
Are you hopeful that the presence of prominent figures like yourself, like the Irish actor Liam Cunningham, this time on this boat, might help increase the Madleen's chances of actually reaching Gaza?
That we don't know. But what we do know is that I and the others on board will continue doing everything we can, both in the short term and in the long term, to fight for justice and to demand an end to Israel's war crimes.
Given what happened to previous boats, do you in your heart feel you really will make it to Gaza? What are the chances, do you feel?
The uncertainties are very big, of course, and we have made many risk assessments trying to judge the situation, and we are preparing for different scenarios to respond in a non-violent way to maximize our safety. But we are aiming to sail to Gaza. That is what we do know at this point.
What will it mean for the world if this boat is either attacked by drones, as the Conscience was, or raided by Israeli commandos, as the Mavi Marmara was?
Yeah, we have made it very clear from the beginning that we are 12 peaceful volunteers who are not carrying weapons. We are carrying humanitarian aid. We will not be responding in any violent way. We are sailing on international waters, which is our right to do. So again, if someone, IOF or allies with Israel, decides to attack us, then it is just another example of the disrespect of international law and human rights.
Will you still consider this mission a success, even if you don't make it to Gaza?
The point, at least behind my participation here personally, is that I feel like no matter what odds we are facing, we have to keep trying. And whatever happens, we will be able to see that we tried our best. We tried every method we had at hands. And we will continue to do so in whatever shape or form, whether we make it to Gaza and will be able to distribute the humanitarian aid, or if we are stopped on the way. But we must also remember that we do not only need humanitarian aid to come into Gaza, we do not only need a ceasefire, we need an end to the occupation.
I'm not sure how closely you're able to follow social media these days, but
Not at all.
US Senator, not surprising, but US Senator Lindsey Graham posted on X a comment which has been widely seen as a threat against you and the aid mission, saying, "Hope Greta and her friends can swim." Does it shock you that this sort of devaluation of your life and the lives of the people with you on that boat can come from a senior figure of the US government, of the Congress?
Unfortunately, it does not surprise me. The reason why we have ended up in the situation we are is because of the systematic dehumanization of Palestinians and demonization of everyone who expressed solidarity. So that does not surprise me at all, unfortunately. It does say a lot about their approaches, that they, well, these elected officials who are complicit in genocide spend their time mocking people who are at least trying to do something rather than ending their complicity. Says everything you need to know about them.
What do you say back to him, Greta?
For me, it's not worth my time responding to that. There are so many similar comments every day, and it's just, why should I care?
How confident are you as an EU citizen that should this boat come under attack, that the EU navies will be there to assist you, given what happened to the previous ship, the Conscience?
Yeah. Unfortunately, not too confident.
What does bringing aid to Gaza mean for addressing the needs of people there whom dozens of UN special rapporteurs and experts, international human rights groups say are facing a genocide?
Yeah, of course, it is very, very clear that humanitarian aid desperately needs to come into Gaza, and that the blockade has to end. But as I said earlier, we do not only need short-term humanitarian aid, we need a long-term end to the occupation, a permanent ceasefire, and justice and freedom for all Palestinians. So the humanitarian aid is, of course, a symbolic amount, as we cannot fit too much on this boat. But it is also an attempt to once again try to break the siege and open up a humanitarian corridor. And of course, a symbolic act of solidarity with Palestinians.
We know the last boat, the Conscience, came under a drone attack. The Mavi Marmara was raided by Israeli commandos, a raid that killed 10 people. Is any part of you afraid, Greta?
What I'm afraid of is the deadly silence of the world and the passivity that so many people are showing right now when they know very much what is going on, that they do not put pressure on their own governments, even though that they know that they are very much complicit. That is what scares me the most.
You're very well known for your efforts to urge the world to protect the environment. Are you on the Madleen today as a climate activist, or simply as a human being who cares about the lives of others?
I would say the latter. Stepping up and showing solidarity with Palestine is something that everyone must do, no matter your background, no matter where you are from. And again, I'm a climate justice activist because I care about justice, because I care about human and planetary well-being. It should be self-evident why we should all act in all our power to stand in solidarity with Palestine. The question should not be, why do you care about Palestine? The question should be, why on earth are you not caring? Why are you not outraged?
So clearly you see a link between environmental activism and the mission that you're on, given that environmental and climate change often harms vulnerable communities. And what we see in Gaza is a very vulnerable community being harmed.
Yeah, of course. There are many direct links links that show how ecocide and environmental destruction is a systematic method of war and used to oppress people. But also, again, it should be much simpler than that. It should just be, if you care about humans, if you care about justice, then you should care both about climate justice and justice for Palestine.
And a final question, Greta. We know that the Madleen has been facing a lot of hurdles and challenges. We know it's been tracked by drones. How do you feel about the position that European governments have taken, Western governments, the US has taken towards this aid mission? Have they done their moral and legal responsibility in your eyes?
Nowhere near enough, but also we must remember that this mission is not about us. This mission is not about Madleen and the passengers on board, the crew, the volunteers on board. This mission is about Palestine and the genocide and the occupation that is ongoing. And in that question, it is shameful every day how the world keeps showing its betrayal towards Palestinians.
If you do make it to Gaza, what do you plan to do? Have you thought about that scenario, as unlikely as it may seem to many people?
Yeah, then we will distribute humanitarian aid. That is the main goal.
Okay, thank you very much, Greta Thunberg, for talking to Al Jazeera.
Thank you.
Yasemin Acar, the steering committee member of the Freedom Flotilla, thank you so much for joining us on board the Madleen in these very difficult circumstances. First of all, let me ask you how spirits are doing there, especially after I think the Madleen was tracked by drones in the last few hours or so.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. We are on the Madleen right now. It's our day 4, and the spirits are high. We are in good moods. We are doing exactly not the exact same things, but we live as we would live at home, and we continue our mission. We are on our way to Gaza.
Are you a little bit worried about the possibility of this boat coming under attack as the previous boat, the Conscience, did?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, we had drones above us yesterday, one at 11 p.m. and then again at 11 p.m. and then one at 3 a.m. and they were tracking us until approximately 5 a.m. And it's obvious that this is a scare tactic, definitely psychological warfare. We know exactly what could happen on this mission, looking at the history of the Freedom Flotilla and remembering what happened in 2010, and also remembering what happened 4 weeks ago, which is not so long ago. We were attacked by a drone in international waters, 20 miles off the coast from Malta. We are aware of the risks, but again, that is not what's going to stop us.
Yasemin, do you know who is sending these drones to track you? I think no one has claimed responsibility for the drone attack on the Conscience, right? So do you know who's sending these drones now to follow the Madleen?
Well, we do know from 4 weeks ago that it was Israel sending these drones, even though they did not claim this attack or taken any responsibility, accountability, and there was no condemnation from the European Union, even though this attack happened in their very backyard. Last night, you can track these things. You can track drones, planes, and we know it was Greek. It came from Greece, and there was one drone, however, that we could not identify, and another drone, from what we know, was from the US. We did get in contact with the Coast Guard in Greece. When we asked these questions and asked them to identify these drones, they simply ignored us and said that we have to contact Malta because we are in the search and rescue territory of Malta.
That's, I imagine, quite... it raises a lot of questions, right? If you're being tracked, you say, by some Greek drones, some American drones, and some other drones you can't identify, have you asked the Greek and American authorities why they're tracking you? Are they there, or are they saying they're there to try and help protect you? Or do you fear that they may be cooperating with the Israelis for some other action?
Looking at the past 19 months, we have seen the war crimes committed by Israel. We all know that these war crimes or this genocide could not happen the way it's happening without its allies. And the mentioned states, they are very much complicit. So in Malta, the attack in Malta knew that Israel was sending a Hercules C-130 into Maltese airspace. So this is to say Malta is complicit in this attack. About the drones yesterday, we don't have answers from these governments, obviously. So this is what we are left with. I mean, right. You know, with a world that does not take accountability, that does not give us any information. And this is due to the fact that they are all Israel's allies.
And your boat is unarmed, right? And you're all there as peaceful aid activists that want to bring aid into Gaza. How do you plan to deal with a scenario if you do come under attack?
Yes, we are a purely non-violent action, and this has been the legacy of the Freedom Flotilla. Of course, these are very legitimate questions that we are being asked. But we have to ask the question back to Israel and its allies. Why would you even plan to attack a civilian vessel carrying nothing but humanitarian aid, carrying nothing but human rights activists? If we do come under attack, we have our, as I mentioned before, we have our nonviolent trainings. We do know how to abandon ship. But if there would be let's say, missiles fired at us or torpedoes, the chance of survival is very, very low, and we are very much aware of this.
All right, take us through what sort of cargo you're bringing to Gaza.
Our aid is literally a drop in the ocean. We packed the vessel with a lot of aid, as much as possible we can carry with us. But again, it's a drop in the ocean. However, this is a message to the world. We're saying we're not going to be silent. We are not going to accept the complicity, and we are definitely saying not in our name. We won't just sit here, watch a live stream genocide and a 3-month total blockade where not one bottle of water or one piece of bread or any medicine has entered Gaza. So Israel is using starvation as a weapon of war. What we are carrying at the moment, we have medicine, we have rice, we have flour, we have baby formula. We even have crutches. Crutches for many, many years were not allowed into Gaza. We even have a prosthetic arm for a child.
You mentioned that it's a drop in the ocean. We know that there's around 2 million people in Gaza facing very difficult conditions. International human rights groups like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch talk about a genocide and acts of genocide that they're facing. So is the main goal of your mission really simply to break this siege and to establish the precedent and the principle that people can respond and help?
Absolutely. Our aim is to open up a people's humanitarian sea corridor. And this action is, we are literally saying that we have to come together. We have to come together and be in solidarity. How can we be in solidarity? We can be in solidarity with our actions. And this is the Madleen. We are taking action. We are taking the actions that our governments are supposed to take. But our governments are shipping weapons instead of aid. They are upholding the illegal siege and the illegal blockade on Gaza. And so this is basically why we are here. This is basically why we are doing what we are doing.
So am I right in assuming that regardless of whether the Madleen makes it to Gaza or not, this won't be the last attempt?
Absolutely not. The Madleen is our 36th ship since 2008, and we will continue. They tried to stop us in Malta. Last year, they stopped us in Istanbul. We were carrying 5,500 tons of aid, but due to bureaucratic warfare, we could not go to Gaza. We could not sail to Gaza. And then we attempted again with our small vessel Handala, and again we were stopped. And this year, now we have managed to set sail with our beautiful sailing boat Madleen.
I need to ask you, Yasemin, in your heart of hearts, do you really believe you will make it to Gaza?
You know, I believe that if we didn't have hope, we wouldn't be able to do all of this work, because it requires a lot of work to make this mission happen. And of course, we are fighting governments, we are fighting bureaucratic warfare, and even drone attacks now.
But which governments do you feel are fighting a bureaucratic war against you?
You know, we had the flag of Palau on the conscience, and Palau deflagged us 7 hours prior to the attack. So this was a well-planned attack. And this has happened last year in Istanbul as well. We were deflagged. And, you know, the port authorities are the ones that are also trying to stop us.
What do you say to friends, to relatives who might be worried about your safety? How do you explain to them your decision, your conviction that you must be on the Madleen?
Of course, people that love me, people that know me, worry about me. But our lives are not more worth than the lives of the Palestinians. And if we do realize this, and if we can give up on our privileges and purely stand up for justice and what's right, I think we can overcome these fears if we do have them. I personally don't fear Israel, neither do I fear the consequences of our action. I have hope, and I believe in justice, and justice has to be fought for, and we have to make a stand. If we look away, what will that say about us, and what world are we preparing for the generations to come?
Yasemin, a moment ago you mentioned some of the deflagging and procedural hurdles that you've been confronted with, and just to clarify, that all applies to previous flotillas or previous boats, not to the Madleen that you're on. Also on the previous missions by the Conscience, for example, the last boat, it was bombed by a drone. And we know that the Freedom Flotilla coalition put out a statement saying that Maltese authorities had prevented other ships from reaching the Conscience, even though it was in international waters. Have you asked the Maltese authorities, I'm curious to know, for an explanation as to why they stopped other ships coming to the aid of the Conscience after it was hit by a drone in international waters?
Yes, of course, we were in contact with the Maltese authorities. However, we were not in direct contact. It was very difficult, and it's very important to mention that the crew members were stranded for almost 2 weeks in international waters, meaning that Malta put them under danger because attacks could have happened anytime after the first attack. So these people were treated like they are the terrorists.
Yasemin, let me put to you the line that I read from the Maltese authorities. They were saying that they had actually offered the Conscience assistance, but the crew of the Conscience was initially refusing that assistance from the Maltese Navy. Is that your understanding of what happened?
So let's go back to the attack. The attack happened during midnight. It was 12:11, something like that. There were 2 bombs released onto the Conscience, which caused a fire and injured 4 people on the Conscience. And the Navy came and wanted them to abandon the ship. Mind you, we are a humanitarian mission. We have the goal to break the siege, and the people on the vessel, the crew members and the activists, refused to abandon the ship because in the history of the flotilla, our ships get confiscated. So this is the reason why they refused to abandon the ship. And also, they did not identify themselves to be the Navy or where they are from, even though they were asked by the crew to identify themselves. They did not identify themselves. And after a horrific attack like that, I think no one would abandon the ship and get on another vessel if the people on the other vessel did not identify themselves, because it could be pretty much Israel or someone that would want to harm them.
Clearly, there's a lot going against you and against this mission by the Madleen. You've mentioned some of the challenges that the Freedom Flotilla Coalition faced on the conscience. We've seen in 2010 the Israeli raid on the Mavi Marmara that killed 10 people. The ICC decided ultimately not to investigate that further. There's been no sign of accountability for the drone attack on the conscience last month. When you've got all of that in the back of your mind, do you feel the world powers really care about you, about your colleagues there on the boat, and about this mission of trying to help people in Gaza?
Our governments do not care about humanity. We're talking about colonialism, imperialism, capitalism. What do these three have in common? It's power, it's money. And if they would have cared about human beings, they would have cared first and foremost about the almost 20,000 children murdered in Gaza, only identified. I'm talking about the identified. There's so many more unidentified children murdered under the rubble and blown into pieces. So knowing this, we believe that we don't count on our governments, to be honest. We count on the civil society. And if you go on social media, if you go right now into the news, people know, the world knows that we are on our way because we took a stand. And so many people around the world are in solidarity because they feel we also represent them. And this is what we have to pay attention to, because people can make a nation or they can break a nation. And we are 12 people, but we are millions of people on this vessel. Every day, the messages that we receive, even talking to journalists, our voices are heard, and our voices don't represent us. Our voices represent the voiceless, which are the Palestinians in Gaza being starved to death, being bombed to pieces.
Yasemin Acar, it's been a pleasure to talk to you aboard the Madleen. Thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to hearing more about your journey as it progresses. Yasemin Acar,
thank you so much.
Steering Committee member and organizer of the Freedom Flotilla of the Madleen.